Welcome to our deep dives today. We're going to be talking about network effects. And we've got some excerpts here from Andrew Chen's book, The Cold Start Problem. And it seems like you're really interested in those explosive growth stories like Uber Slack and Wikipedia and how they went from like 0 to 1 billion users. So I think that's what we're going to be unpacking today. We're going to use Chen's framework to analyze real-world examples and uncover the strategies that they used to build these massive world-changing networks.
Yeah, and what really strikes me about network effects is that we often talk about them in the context of like tech, but they're really a fundamental aspect of like human behavior. This need to connect, to share, to be part of something larger than ourselves.
Yeah, it's not just about lines of code, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But let's dive into this cold start problem. It's that moment when you know your product is brand new and you're trying to get those first crucial users on board. And it feels like pushing a boulder uphill, right?
Absolutely. And one of the most valuable insights that Chen offers is this concept of the atomic network. And it's really about finding the smallest possible unit of users that can create this self-sustaining loop of value.
So instead of like trying to boil the ocean, you're looking for that little spark to ignite the fire.
Exactly.
Give me an example of this atomic network in action.
Yeah, so think about Slack. Before they became like a workplace staple, they were actually a struggling gaming company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, their pivot to this successful chat platform started by focusing on small, tight-knit teams.
Hmm?
And so 3 active users in a Slack channel, that was their initial target. And the thinking was if these 3 people found value in the tool, they would naturally invite others, and the network would start to expand organically.
That makes sense. So it's almost like a chain reaction, but you need that initial critical mass
Yeah.
to trigger it.
Ex-
So once you've established a few of these atomic networks, the next hurdle is navigating what Chen calls the tipping point. And this is where rapid growth kicks in, right? And your network starts to gain serious momentum. But we've seen platforms like MySpace come crashing down after reaching that tipping point. What separates the successes from the failures at this crucial stage?
Yeah, it's not just about adding more users, it's really about understanding the dynamics of growth and engagement. And one fascinating concept that Chen introduces is something called Meerkat's Law, or sometimes referred to as the alley effect. And he uses the analogy of meerkat mobs to explain how a network's carrying capacity influences its success.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these meerkats and how they relate to tech companies.
Yeah, so think of it this way. A small group of meerkats is incredibly vulnerable. They don't have enough lookouts to effectively guard against predators. But as the mob grows, their safety and foraging efficiency increases dramatically. And this is similar to how small user base on a platform can lead to network collapse. If early users don't see enough activity or value, they're going to churn and the platform will wither.
So, like, those meerkats reaching a certain size is crucial for survival in the digital world, too.
Exactly.
But here's the catch. Just like an overcrowded meerkat mob can face resource scarcity and internal conflict, a digital network that grows too rapidly without the right infrastructure can lead to a degraded user experience.
Absolutely.
Right. Think about those early days of Facebook when the news feed was just like an endless stream of unfiltered posts. It was
It
overwhelming.
was total chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why features like spam detection, algorithmic feeds, and personalized recommendations, they become critical as a network scales. It's about managing complexity and maintaining that delicate balance between growth and a positive user experience.
So it's not just about getting big. It's
Yeah.
about growing smart. You've got to anticipate those challenges that come with scale and put those systems in place early on.
Once a platform navigates the tipping point and establishes a solid user base, Chen's framework points to the next stage, escape velocity. And it's about achieving self-sustaining growth, where the network's momentum becomes almost unstoppable.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting. Tell me more about this escape velocity and how companies actually get there.
Yeah, so Chen breaks it down into 3 key components: the acquisition effect, the engagement effect, and the economic effect. The acquisition effect is really about leveraging the network itself to acquire new users. So think about those viral growth loops, referral programs, and word-of-mouth marketing.
So it's like a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering more and more snow as it goes.
Exactly. Now, the engagement effect focuses on making the product stickier, keeping users coming back for more. And so as the network grows, the platform becomes more valuable and engaging, which in turn increases user retention.
I see. So it's not just about getting people in the door. It's about giving them a reason to stay.
Right, and that brings us to the economic effect. And this is where network effects start to impact a company's bottom line. As the network scales, conversion rates improve, average revenue per user goes up, and monetization strategies become more efficient.
So it's not just about user numbers. It's about building a sustainable business model that thrives on network effects.
And one of the most effective ways to achieve escape velocity is by understanding the hard side of your network, those users who create a disproportionate amount of value.
Okay, break that down for me. Who are these hard side users and why are they so important?
So think about YouTube. Millions of people watch videos, but only a small fraction actually uploads content. Those creators are the hard side. They're the ones driving engagement, attracting viewers, and ultimately making the platform valuable.
Right, without the creators, YouTube's just an empty shell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same principle applies to other platforms. Think about power sellers on eBay, dedicated editors on Wikipedia, or those who consistently contribute high-quality content on Reddit. These are the users who attract and retain the easy side of the network.
So if you're building a platform that relies on user-generated content, you need to cater to those creators from day one.
Absolutely.
Make them feel valued, give them the tools they need to succeed, and ultimately make it easy for them to share their work and build an audience.
Absolutely. Attracting and retaining the hard side is essential for establishing those initial atomic networks and setting the stage for escape velocity.
All right, so we've got the groundwork laid.
Hmm.
We understand the cold start problem, the importance of atomic networks, the dynamics of the tipping point, and the three key components of escape velocity. But how do we actually put this knowledge into practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where those real-world success stories come in. And I think it would be helpful to start by diving into the fascinating case of Tinder. And, you know, they managed to solve the cold start problem in the notoriously difficult world of online dating.
Okay, this should be good. I'm all ears.
So, Tinder faced two major challenges right out of the gate. First, the viral potential of a dating app is inherently limited. People aren't usually broadcasting their dating activities to their entire social circle.
Right, yeah.
The second is successful matches naturally churn off the platform. Once you find what you're looking for, you're less likely to keep swiping.
Makes sense.
So the question is, how did they overcome these hurdles and ignite that initial spark? What was their secret sauce?
Yeah, what was it?
They brilliantly targeted a hyper-connected niche, the USC Greek system. They threw these exclusive parties where the only way to enter was to download the Tinder app.
Interesting. So they created a sense of exclusivity and tapped into a pre-existing social network where people were already looking to connect.
Exactly. By seeding the app within this tightly knit community, they created a surge in downloads and established an initial highly engaged user base, and then they replicated this strategy at other college campuses, expanding their network rapidly.
That's a brilliant example of solving the cold start problem. By understanding your target audience, leveraging existing social dynamics, and creating a sense of urgency and excitement.
Absolutely.
Now, while clever marketing tactics can certainly play a role in achieving escape velocity, it's crucial to remember that the product itself needs to deliver on its core value proposition.
Yeah, it's not just about the hype, right? It's about building something people actually want to use.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the story of Zoom founder Eric Yuan initially struggled to convince investors of the value of a simpler, more user-friendly video conferencing tool. And, back then, established players like WebEx and GoToMeeting, they dominated the market.
So what made Zoom different? How did they break through the clutter?
It really came down to a laser focus on the user experience. Zoom stripped away the complexity and friction that plagued other platforms, creating a product that was incredibly easy to use. And, you just click a link and you're in.
And that simplicity was key to unlocking those new atomic networks. I remember when Zoom first started taking off, people were raving about how easy it was to use. And they were inviting their friends, their colleagues, even their family members to join.
Yeah, and that ease of use is a hallmark of many successful networked products. Think about Snapchat, Dropbox, Uber, YouTube. They all have these incredibly simple value propositions that are easy to understand and even easier to share with others.
So in addition to targeting the right users and building those initial atomic networks, you need to make sure the product itself is intuitive, engaging, and it delivers on its promise.
Absolutely. And as we delve further into Chen's framework, we'll uncover even more strategies that companies use to achieve escape velocity and build these lasting world-changing networks.
I'm ready to keep digging. Let's see what other insights we can uncover in part 2 of this deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Last time, we were talking about how companies like Tinder and Zoom navigated that cold start problem and ignited those crucial early growth phases. But now let's explore some of the strategies they use to achieve what Chen calls escape velocity, that point where growth becomes self-sustaining and the network takes on a life of its own.
Escape velocity. It sounds almost like a physical law of the universe applied to the tech world. What are the key forces at play here that propel these companies to such incredible heights?
So Chen outlines three powerful forces that drive escape velocity: the acquisition effect, the engagement effect, and the economic effect. And each one kind of builds upon the other, creating a powerful flywheel that accelerates growth.
Let's unpack each of these, starting with the acquisition effect. It sounds like it's all about bringing in new users, but how does this tie back to the idea of network effects?
Yeah, so the beauty of the acquisition effect is that it leverages the network itself to attract new users. Think about those invite your friends prompts you see in apps or the viral growth loops that we discussed earlier. As the network grows, its gravitational pull becomes stronger, attracting new users organically through word of mouth, social sharing, and, a sense of FOMO, the fear of missing out.
So the network becomes its own marketing machine in a way.
Mhm.
The more people use it, the more appealing it becomes to those who haven't joined yet.
Exactly.
Now let's move on to the engagement effect. This is all about keeping those users engaged, turning them from casual visitors into active participants who contribute to the network's value.
Right.
Engagement is key, especially in today's attention economy. How do platforms foster that deep sense of engagement that keeps users coming back for more?
So it's a combination of factors. First, the product itself needs to be designed for engagement, offering features that encourage interaction, collaboration, and content creation. Think about the addictive nature of social media feeds, right? Or the collaborative features that make platforms like Slack so valuable for teams.
Right, it's about creating a space where users feel like they're a part of something,
Mm.
where their contributions matter.
Exactly. And as the network grows and engagement deepens, the platform's value proposition becomes even stronger. And this increased value, in turn, attracts even more users and fuels further engagement, creating this virtuous cycle.
So the engagement effect is all about maximizing the value that users derive from the platform, which ultimately feeds back into the acquisition effect. It's a beautiful interplay of forces.
Right.
Now, let's talk about the economic effect. This is where things get really interesting for businesses. As the network scales, it unlocks new economic opportunities and strengthens the company's bottom line.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is the part where investors start paying attention. How do network effects translate into tangible economic benefits?
So, in several ways. First, as the network grows, conversion rates tend to improve. More users mean more potential customers, and the platform's credibility increases, making users more likely to make purchases or sign up for paid services.
So it's not just about user numbers, it's about the quality and intent of those users.
Right. And as engagement increases, average revenue per user also tends to rise. Engaged users spend more time on the platform, interact with more content, and are more likely to convert into paying customers.
It's like building a loyal fan base.
Mm.
The more invested they are in the platform, the more willing they are to support it financially.
Yeah, and finally, network effects make monetization strategies more efficient. As the network scales, companies can offer more targeted advertising, premium subscriptions, and other revenue-generating features, maximizing their return on investment.
So the economic effect is all about turning those network advantages into tangible business results. It's like the holy grail for any company building a platform.
Right.
Now let's see how these three forces, acquisition, engagement, and economic, played out in the success story of Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox is a great example.
Dropbox, they're a great example of a company that seemingly came out of nowhere and quickly became like a household name. How did they leverage network effects to achieve such rapid growth?
So Dropbox started as a simple file syncing tool, but they cleverly leveraged the engagement effect by introducing shared folders, encouraging users to collaborate and invite others.
So they transformed a single-player tool into like a collaborative platform amplifying the network effect.
Exactly. And as the network grew, they started to see the economic effect kick in down. Users who were collaborating at work were more likely to upgrade to paid subscriptions, driving revenue growth.
They cracked the code. They offered a valuable product, fostered engagement, and built a sustainable business model around those network effects.
Right.
Now, achieving escape velocity is not without its challenges. One of the biggest hurdles is overcoming churn, right? That inevitable loss of users over time.
Churn is a constant battle.
Churn is like the silent killer for any growing platform. How do companies combat this constant drain on their user base?
So, network products have a unique advantage here. They can use notifications, personalized recommendations, and social connections to re-engage inactive users.
Think about those "your friend just joined" notifications, or those personalized recommendations that surface content that you might find interesting. They can be surprisingly effective in pulling people back into the platform.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's as simple as reminding users of the value they're missing out on. A well-timed email or push notification can rekindle their interest and bring them back into the fold.
So it's about staying top of mind, demonstrating value, and making it easy for users to re-engage.
Right.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about the acquisition effect in a bit more detail. We touched on viral growth loops earlier, but let's dive into a specific example, the legendary PayPal referral program.
Yeah, the PayPal referral program.
Ah, yes, the infamous $10 for you, $10 for your friend campaign. It seemed crazy at the time, but it clearly worked.
It was a masterclass in incentivized referrals. And PayPal understood that acquiring new users was crucial in the early stages, and they were willing to invest heavily to achieve that critical mass.
They were literally paying people to join their network. Was it sustainable in the long run?
The genius of their strategy was that the cost of those referrals was more than offset by the increased engagement and lifetime value of the acquired users.
So it was a calculated gamble that paid off handsomely. They invested upfront to build a valuable network, and those network effects ultimately drove their long-term success.
Exactly. It's a classic example of what Chen calls selling $1 for 90 cents, a short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
It's a bold strategy,
Hmm.
but when it works, it can be a game changer.
Right.
Now, let's talk about some of the more unconventional strategies companies use to overcome the cold start problem. We briefly mentioned Flintstoning earlier, but let's delve a bit deeper into this intriguing tactic.
Flintstoning is an interesting one.
Flintstoning, it sounds like something out of the Stone Age. How does this ancient technique apply to the modern tech world?
So it's about mimicking product functionality in the early stages, even if it means getting your hands dirty and doing things manually.
So it's about faking it till you make it.
In a way, yes. And the classic example is Reddit. In the early days, the founders created fake accounts to populate the platform with content and create this illusion of an active community.
They were essentially playing both sides of the network, generating content and engaging in discussions to make the platform feel alive.
Exactly. And as more real users joined, they gradually phased out those fake accounts.
It's a clever hack, but it highlights the importance of creating that initial sense of momentum and engagement. If a platform feels like a ghost town, it's unlikely to attract and retain users.
Now, Flintstoning can also involve using manual processes to replace missing features. For example, imagine a food delivery app that hasn't yet partnered with all the restaurants in a city.
Right.
They might initially use human couriers to pick up and deliver food from those unpartnered restaurants, creating a seamless experience for users, even if it's not fully automated yet.
It's about finding creative workarounds to provide a delightful user experience, even in the early stages when resources are limited.
Exactly. And the key is to have an exit strategy. Once the platform reaches a certain scale and automation becomes feasible, those manual processes can be phased out.
So it's a temporary solution to bridge the gap until the technology catches up.
Right.
Now let's shift gears and talk about Twitch. They're a fascinating example of a company that transformed a struggling live streaming platform into like a billion-dollar behemoth.
Twitch is an interesting case study.
Twitch, they've become synonymous with live gaming, but their early days were far from smooth sailing. How did they turn things around and tap into the power of network effects?
So their key insight was recognizing the importance of catering to the hard side of their network. The content creators, the streamers who are pouring their hearts and souls into creating engaging live content.
They shifted their focus from the audience to the creators, recognizing that the platform's success hinged on empowering those who are driving the value.
Exactly. They implemented features like tipping, improved discoverability, and fostered a sense of community among streamers, creating an environment where creators could thrive.
And as the creator community grew and flourished, the audience followed, drawn in by the diverse and engaging content.
Right.
It's a testament to the power of understanding the hard side and building a platform that caters to their needs.
Now, even with the best strategies, every successful network eventually hits a ceiling. Growth inevitably slows down as market saturation sets in and the initial excitement wears off.
Right.
And that's where the law of shitty click-throughs comes into play.
Oh, the law of shitty click-throughs.
It highlights the inevitable decline in marketing channel effectiveness over time.
Think about those banner ads that were once like a novelty.
Yeah.
Now they're mostly ignored, lost in like the sea of online noise.
Exactly. And email open rates decline, social media algorithms become more selective, and the cost of acquiring new users through paid advertising skyrockets.
So what's the solution? How do companies adapt and maintain momentum when those initial growth levers lose their effectiveness?
So it's a constant game of innovation and adaptation. Companies need to constantly experiment with new marketing channels. refine their messaging, and find creative ways to re-engage their existing user base.
eBay's a great example of a company that faced this challenge head-on.
Yeah, eBay.
Their initial growth trajectory was phenomenal, but eventually they hit a wall. How did they overcome market saturation and continue to thrive?
Oh, they did it by adding new layers of value to their platform. They introduced features like Buy It Now and online stores. They expanded internationally, and they targeted adjacent user groups.
So instead of resting on their laurels, they kept iterating, expanding their offerings, and finding new ways to connect buyers and sellers.
Exactly. They essentially built a multi-layered cake, where each new layer added to the overall value and appeal of the platform.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of slowing growth, there's always room for innovation and expansion.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about building moats, right? Those competitive advantages that protect successful networks from rivals.
Moats. They sound like something out of medieval times. How do these defensive structures translate to the digital world?
So think of a moat as a barrier to entry, something that makes it difficult for competitors to replicate your success. And in the world of networks, moats can take many forms.
Give me some examples. What are some of the common moats we see in successful tech companies?
So one of the most powerful moats is the network effect itself. Once a network reaches a certain size and level of engagement, it becomes incredibly difficult for competitors to catch up.
It's like that snowball effect we talked about earlier,
Ugh.
but on like a massive scale.
Right.
The bigger the network, the stronger its gravitational pull.
Think about Facebook. Despite all the controversies, they remain the dominant social network because of their massive user base and those network effects that keep people coming back.
It would be incredibly difficult for a new social network to replicate that level of connectivity and engagement.
Right. But moats aren't just about scale. They're also about the quality of the network, the strength of the community, and the brand loyalty you've built.
Right. It's not just about having a lot of users. It's about having the right users and fostering like a strong sense of community.
And the Airbnb versus Wimdu case study is a perfect illustration of this. Wimdu launched aggressively in Europe with massive funding and rapid hiring, posing a serious threat to Airbnb.
It seemed like a David versus Goliath situation.
Yeah.
How did Airbnb fend off this formidable challenger?
So Wimdu focused on quantity over quality, adding listings as quickly as possible without paying enough attention to the user experience.
Right.
Airbnb, on the other hand, prioritized building a curated marketplace with high-quality listings and a strong sense of community.
They understood that building a sustainable network requires more than just numbers. It's about cultivating trust, authenticity, and a genuine sense of belonging.
And in the end, that made all the difference. Airbnb's focus on quality and community allowed them to weather the storm and emerge as the dominant player in the vacation rental market.
It's a powerful reminder that building a moat is not just about scale. It's about building a strong foundation of trust, quality, and community.
Now let's talk about another interesting moat building strategy, cherry picking.
Cherry picking. It sounds a bit sneaky. What does this tactic entail?
So it's about identifying vulnerable niches within a larger network and targeting those specific segments.
So it's not about taking on the giant head on. It's about finding those cracks in their armor and exploiting them.
Exactly. A classic example is Craigslist. They were once the dominant online classifieds platform, but they were eventually cherry-picked by companies like Airbnb, Etsy, and TaskRabbit.
Right.
These companies focused on specific categories where Craigslist was weak or underserved, and they built their own successful networks by catering to those niche markets.
It's a reminder that even the most powerful networks have weaknesses. And those weaknesses can be exploited by smaller, more agile competitors who are willing to focus on specific needs.
Right. So it's not always about building the biggest network. It's about building the right network for the right audience.
Now, building a moat is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that requires vigilance, adaptability, and a willingness to evolve.
It's like tending a garden. You need to constantly weed out the competition, fertilize your network with new features and innovations, and protect it from external threats.
Now, one of the key challenges in maintaining a moat is managing the hard side of the network. As a network grows, the hard side often becomes more powerful and demanding.
Yeah, the power dynamics shift.
This makes sense. As the platform becomes more reliant on those key contributors, their leverage increases.
Exactly. Think about Uber drivers. They've become increasingly vocal about their demands for better pay and working conditions.
And if their concerns aren't addressed, They can disrupt the network and damage the brand.
Exactly. So balancing the needs of the hard side with the needs of the platform and the other users is this delicate balancing act.
It's about finding a way to create like a win-win-win situation for everyone involved.
Right.
Now, let's talk about some of the potential pitfalls of network effects. One of the biggest challenges is something called context collapse.
Context collapse. That's an interesting one.
Context collapse, that sounds intriguing. What exactly does it mean?
So it's what happens when different networks or communities collide, leading to a degraded experience.
Think about what happens when like your family members join Facebook and start seeing your posts intended for like your friends.
Yeah,
It can lead to awkward situations and make people less likely to share freely.
exactly. And messaging apps like iMessage and WhatsApp are designed to prevent context collapse by creating separate groups and conversations.
They allow users to segment their networks and tailor their communication to specific audiences.
Right. Other platforms use features like privacy settings and content filtering to mitigate those risks of context collapse.
So it's about giving users more control over their online interactions and ensuring that they feel comfortable sharing within different contexts.
Another challenge is the rise of trolls, spammers, and other bad actors who can quickly erode that trust and goodwill that's essential for a healthy network.
This is a problem that plagues almost every online platform. How do companies combat these malicious actors and protect the integrity of their networks?
So content moderation is crucial. Platforms need to have clear policies and effective mechanisms for identifying and removing harmful content.
It's a constant battle, and it often involves a combination of human moderators and AI-powered algorithms.
Right. Reddit, for example, uses a combination of community moderation and algorithmic filtering to keep its platform clean.
They also empower users to upvote and downvote content,
Well,
which helps to surface the best content and bury the bad.
right.
It's a reminder that building a successful network requires more than just technology. It also requires a strong community, clear guidelines, and a commitment to fostering like a positive and inclusive environment.
And, you know, another potential pitfall is overcrowding. As a network grows, it can become difficult to find relevant information and connect with the right people.
Right, think about YouTube. They have billions of videos. But finding the ones that you want to watch can be a challenge.
Exactly. And search algorithms, personalized recommendations, and content filtering are all essential for managing the complexity of large networks.
It's about helping users navigate that vast ocean of content and find those gems that are relevant to their interests.
Now, let's talk about the delicate balance between growth and quality. As a network scales, it's tempting to prioritize growth above all else.
But if you sacrifice quality for growth,
Yeah.
you risk alienating your core users and damaging your brand.
Right, Wimdu made this mistake. They focused on adding listings as quickly as possible without paying enough attention to the quality of those listings.
And in the end, it cost them out. Airbnb, on the other hand, focused on building a curated marketplace with high-quality listings and a strong sense of community.
Right.
They understood that building a sustainable network requires more than just numbers. It also requires trust, authenticity, and a commitment to excellence.
Exactly. So it's not just about growing fast. It's about growing, right?
Now let's talk about some of the strategies companies use to defend their moats and maintain their competitive advantage.
In defending your territory.
It's a constant battle. There's always someone trying to steal your market share.
So one strategy is to constantly innovate and add new features.
Right.
And this can help you stay ahead of the competition and keep your users engaged.
Think about how Facebook constantly introduces new features like stories, reels, and marketplace.
Right. It's about keeping your platform fresh and relevant.
Another strategy is to expand into new markets. And this can help you reach new users and diversify your revenue streams.
Yeah, for example, Netflix started as a DVD rental service in the US, but they eventually expanded globally and became like the dominant streaming platform.
Expanding into new markets can be challenging,
Yeah,
but it can also be incredibly rewarding.
absolutely.
The other strategy is to acquire competitors, and this can help you eliminate threats and consolidate your market position.
Yeah. For example, Facebook acquired Instagram and WhatsApp, two of its biggest rivals.
Okay, bold move. But it helped them maintain their dominance in the social media space.
Another strategy is to build a strong brand. And a strong brand can create loyalty and trust, making it harder for competitors to steal your customers.
Think about Apple. They have like a cult-like following thanks to their strong brand and their innovative products.
Building a strong brand takes time and effort,
Hmm.
but it's an essential ingredient for long-term success.
Another strategy is to cultivate a strong community. A strong community can create a sense of belonging and loyalty, making it harder for users to switch to a competitor.
Yeah, community is key.
Think about Reddit. Their passionate communities are one of their biggest strengths.
Absolutely. Building a strong community requires fostering a sense of shared values, encouraging participation, and rewarding positive contributions.
It's about creating a space where people feel welcome, supported, and valued.
Right.
Now, defending a moat is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that requires vigilance, adaptability, and a willingness to evolve.
Absolutely.
You need to be constantly monitoring the competitive landscape, identifying threats, and adjusting your strategies accordingly.
It's like playing a game of chess. You need to anticipate your opponent's moves and stay one step ahead.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful look into the dynamics of network effects, the challenges of achieving escape velocity, and the strategies companies use to build those lasting moats.
It's been a great discussion.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the importance of identifying the hard side to the power of unconventional strategies like flintstoning.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that building a successful network requires more than just technology.
Right.
It also requires a deep understanding of human behavior, a commitment to creating like a positive and engaging user experience, and a willingness to adapt and evolve.
The final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the future of networks and the emerging trends that are shaping the digital landscape.
That's where things get really exciting.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve into the fascinating world of decentralized networks, artificial intelligence, and the ethical considerations that are shaping the future of online interactions. Welcome back to our deep dive on network effects. We've talked about a lot, from the cold start problem to strategies companies use to get to escape velocity and build moats. But let's look ahead now. What's shaping the future of networks? What new challenges and opportunities are out there for people building the next big platforms?
Things get really interesting here. Technology is always changing, and that means how we connect online, build communities online, that's changing too. One big trend is decentralized networks. We're moving away from those huge platforms a few big tech companies control.
Like how YouTube and TikTok changed things for traditional media. Now anyone can create content. Is that what you mean by decentralization?
Exactly. And now we're seeing blockchain platforms. They're taking decentralization even further.
Okay, this is where it gets a bit technical. Blockchain, BAPS.
Hmm.
Can you explain that for listeners who might not know those terms?
Sure. Think of blockchain like a ledger spread out. It records data and transactions securely and transparently, but no one's in charge. And dApps, those are decentralized applications. They run on blockchain, so no single company controls them.
So instead of Facebook having our data, these dApps give us control.
Exactly. Imagine a social network owned by its users. You control your data and have a say in how it changes.
That's a big change from how things work now. What else can these decentralized networks do?
A lot. We might see financial systems without banks making transactions faster and cheaper, or marketplaces connecting creators directly to their audience so they earn more.
It sounds utopian. Are there any downsides?
There are always challenges with new tech security, scaling up, getting people to use it, but the potential benefits are huge.
Okay, so that's decentralization. What other big trends are there?
Artificial intelligence, AI, it's already changing how we use networks.
Like algorithms that personalize our social media, recommend products, or block spam?
Exactly. But that's just the start. Imagine AI helping platforms know what we need, connect us with similar people, and let us work together in new ways.
So AI could make networks even more powerful, helping us connect and solve problems. Sounds exciting, but is there anything to worry about as AI gets bigger in networks?
Definitely. As it gets more powerful, we have to think about privacy, bias, and manipulation. We've seen how algorithms can spread misinformation.
So it's not just about new features, it's about making them responsibly so technology is used for good.
Exactly. The future of networks needs that balance, innovation and responsibility.
Decentralization, AI, ethics. Anything else we should watch for?
The physical and digital worlds are blending. We're seeing networks connect people, places, and things in new ways.
Like the Internet of Things, right? Smart homes, self-driving cars all talking to each other? Feels like sci-fi is coming true.
It is. And it's not just gadgets. Think about smart cities using sensors and networks to manage traffic, energy, even safety. These networks could change how we live and work.
So it's connecting everything to make things work better. It's amazing to think about what's possible.
As these trends, decentralization, AI, ethics, and that digital-physical blend evolve, we're in a whole new era for networks. Huge opportunities and challenges.
So what does this mean for our listeners? Why should they care about these trends, whether they're starting businesses, investing, or just curious about the future?
Network effects are shaping the world. Knowing how they work isn't just for tech people anymore, it's for anyone trying to understand this connected world.
It's knowing how networks grow, what drives them, and how they affect our lives, work, and society.
And remember, the future of networks is what we make it. We can build them to be inclusive, ethical, and give people power, networks that bring us together, not divide us, networks that help us use our collective intelligence to solve the world's big problems.
That's inspiring. So as we finish this deep dive, what's the one thing you want listeners to remember?
Be a network builder. Find your people, connect with them, and use what we talked about to make a difference. The future is built on networks, and it's ours to build.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. It's been fascinating.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep building the networks that will shape the future.